are on the American people, particularly on this day, tax day, April the 17th. And it reminds me that there's another date coming up pretty soon, and I think that's on April the 22nd, and that's called Tax Freedom Day. And that day gets later and later in the calendar year, each and every year. That's how long a person has to work to pay the tax burden, not only to the federal government, but to local and state, and the entire tax burden. Almost a third of the year, Madam Speaker, people have to work to pay the tax burden. So we in the Republican Party feel very strongly that we need to cut taxes, simplify taxes, lower taxes, and we can do that, and we have done that, and we did it in 2001, we did it in 2003, and while we heard from our friends on the other side of the aisle in the previous hour, the so-called Blue Dog Coalition, in regard to the cost to the revenue stream of the tax cuts, saying that we only cut taxes for people making more than $400,000 a year, when in fact, Madam Speaker, everybody who pays taxes got a tax cut under the tax cut provisions that this president and the former majority Republican Party enacted for the American people. And while when you crunch the numbers, that would cost $1.3 trillion or $130 billion each and every year over a 10-year period of time, because supposedly you'd be taking in less revenue. In fact, it stimulated the economy, and over a 2.5-year period of time, the amount of revenue that came into the federal government actually increased by about $250 billion. So our good friends, the Blue Dogs, play a little bit loose with the truth in regard to their calculus. And really it's not calculus, Madam Speaker, it's simple math. The gentleman that spoke, 4 or 5 of them in the previous hour, our friends the Blue Dogs, I mean, they would make great red dogs. They come from states that the so-called Blue Dogs, Democrats, are traditionally conservative. They're fiscally conservative. They're conservative on social issues. And we had a gentleman from Arkansas. We had a member from Tennessee. We had a member from Indiana. We had a member from Ohio. It doesn't surprise me that they would be sounding like Republicans, because many of them represent Republican leaning, typically traditional districts. And when we earn back our majority, Madam Speaker, I think that these Blue Dogs that we're hearing from, 5 tonight, they're a total of 43, many of them would make great red dogs, and I look forward to the day that they join us. But Madam Speaker, in the meantime, I think that I need to talk to them about their math a little bit. They spent some time talking about the debt and the fact that all of this money that we've had to borrow, this $8.8 trillion worth of debt, comes from foreign countries. And the gentleman from Arkansas listed, I think, the top 9, and they want to imply that all of the debt is money that we've had to borrow from rogue nations, if you will. But they're not rogue nations. But the point I want to make, Madam Speaker, is that only about 25% of that debt is held by any foreign nation, whether we're talking about Germany or France or Spain or Portugal or, yes, China or India. 75% of that debt is held by my mom and my dad and our Blue Dog grandparents and corporate America and United States citizens. Americans borrow or lend that money to the United States government because they have faith in the full credit of this great country. So this implication that only rogue nations are willing to borrow money or lend money to this country is totally ludicrous. And if the gentleman from Georgia, my good friend and colleague, Dr. Price, will indulge me for a few minutes, I want to also point out another very, very misleading figure. They take that debt that $8.8 trillion worth of debt that's accumulated over a number of years. Don't forget, Madam Speaker, and my good friends on the other side of the aisle, they controlled this place for 40 years. And that $8.8 trillion worth of debt didn't just occur overnight. But they take 300 million people, man, woman, and child, the population of this great country, and they divide it into $8.8 trillion, and they come up with $27,000 worth of debt for every man, woman, and child in this country. Well, Madam Speaker, what is the gross domestic product, the wealth of this country? I think in the last 2006 maybe be the last figure that I have, it was about $13 trillion. So you divide that same number into the gross domestic product, you could say that the share of the wealth of this country, of every man, woman, and child, is $44,000. So, you know, like I say, they're playing a little loose with the numbers, and they go on and talk about this budget resolution that they've got and how they're going to balance the budget and have no deficit over a 5-year period of time, and actually have a little bit of money in the bank in 2012. How do they do that, Madam Speaker? They do it by letting the tax cuts of the Republican majority and our president expire. Every person that's paying taxes, the increase, the doubling of the child tax credit, the elimination, and once again, the marriage, reinserting the marriage tax penalty. And that's total. When you add up every one of those tax cuts that we enacted that they intend to let expire in 2010 and 2011 is a total, I think, and my colleague from Georgia and my other colleagues that are here tonight will agree, almost $400 billion. And I think that's the largest tax increase on the people of this country in the history of this country. So, again, I thank the gentleman from Georgia for bringing out the truth once again, as he does so well in the Truth Squad discussions, and I thank him for letting me weigh in a little bit tonight. And with that, I'll yield back to the gentleman from